I think you could ask almost anyone, and they would say she's one of the most important leaders in higher education in this country.
And there's no doubt that's the case. If you look at her history, what she's done at the various places she's been, she's done incredible things.
And I don't know another soul in academia for whom people take her direction that seriously.
Ruth J. Simmons was born into a segregated Texas. The youngest of 12 children, she grew up in a family of sharecroppers, surrounded by hard work, limited resources, and a rigidly separated society.
To know Ruth is to know that she is a person who is deeply connected to her family and deeply connected to what she learned from her parents. And in many ways, she learned as much about who she wants to be in the world from her parents who were sharecroppers as she could have ever learned from a professor at Harvard.
When Ruth turned 6, her family moved to Houston, where she attended public schools in the Fifth Ward. Even at such a young age, her teachers recognized her extraordinary potential.
And she was lucky to get to go to school and have teachers who believed in her and told her what she was capable of. And to see her just continue to face and overcome obstacles, prejudice, discrimination, racism, all of the systems that existed to try to hold back her potential, I think that has shaped the person that she's chosen to be.
With the support of one dedicated educator, Simmons earned a scholarship to Dillard University in New Orleans. There, she discovered a love of languages and the humanities. She went on to earn her master's and doctorate in Romance languages and literatures from Harvard University, where she studied abroad in France.
A lot of people, she said, encouraged her to do something more practical in the civil rights era, like a degree in law, and many didn't understand what she would do with the PhD in the Romance languages.
Ruth Simmons had more of a wanderlust as a young person. That is, she went to Mexico and she went to France, and, she can tell you about when she met James Baldwin and all of these kinds of things. But part of that was about a desire to go beyond the points that you know, and a willingness to step out into the unknown and see what happens.
Simmons began her career as a French professor, but her keen intellect and steady leadership quickly moved her into administrative roles. She served at institutions across the country, including the University of New Orleans, California State University, and the University of Southern California. At every stage, she championed access, equality, and academic rigor.
I think what's incredible about her is that she's worked in just a range of different universities and institutions, and in all cases she's transformed them and accomplished some great things. And very few people can be successful at a range of institutions like she has been.
If you just look at her resume, you can see evidence of how hard she worked and kind of how many barriers she broke.
In 1995, Ruth Simmons became president of Smith College, one of the nation's premier women's colleges. There, she created the first engineering program at a U.S. women's college.
She was a person who never saw herself as a college president, who never saw herself running these kinds of institutions. Someone else pointed it out to her and thought she would be good at it, and she took it and ran with it.
In 2001, Ruth J. Simmons became the 18th president of Brown University and the first African-American president of an Ivy League institution. Under her leadership, Brown strengthened financial aid, expanded global partnerships, and completed a record-breaking capital campaign.
She's done a number of surprising things throughout her career, but what they all have in common is a focus on what would be the right thing for the students that I'm serving. And once she's clear on what that is, she is going to find a way to do it, no matter what the obstacles are.
She always was a champion for those who didn't have a voice, whether they're first-generation students, low-income students. She really focused on financial aid and making sure any student who has the ability to study at Brown can afford it.
After retiring from Brown, Simmons returned to Texas to serve as president of Prairie View A&M University, becoming the first woman to lead the historic HBCU.
When she said that she was going to be president of Prairie View, I immediately wanted to say thank you for seeing us, because I knew it was going to change Prairie View forever. The kinds of doors she could open for this institution were going to be bigger than any president we had ever had before.
She brought renewed energy and ambition to the institution, elevating its national profile and investing deeply in student success.
I think she truly believes in the mission of higher ed because she was so touched by it, and so she is laser focused on that. She's always educating, whether she's talking to a student, mentoring a person like myself. She's always in that mode of how do we make sure that we help others.
On her watch, Prairie View became less about being an important HBCU to the state of Texas and more about being an important HBCU to the nation.
Even after her presidency ended, she continued to mentor students and advise institutions, including Harvard University and Rice University, where she serves as a President's Distinguished Fellow.
The phrase that people used with her is Ruth the Truth, because she tells the truth. She really tells it from her heart, and she doesn't try to be something that she's not. And she would always tell me that, just be yourself, and she's always herself.
In addition to her university work, Simmons strived to strengthen leadership in Texas public schools through her commitment to organizations, such as the Holdsworth Center.
Small startup organizations don't often have the wisdom, the experience of someone like Dr. Simmons at the helm, and it is a huge benefit to have a person who has been through the experience of growing organizations, of leading world-class institutions, advising you as you make some of those critical decisions early on that set the path of who you become.
Her commitment to mentorship, civic responsibility, and educational equity has inspired countless educators, administrators, and students to lead with integrity and purpose.
She is a person who forces you to expand the possibility of what you can do. She challenged us all to think about everything we did bigger, more important, more influential.
One of the things she would often tell me as part of my mentoring sessions, she would say it's about the students. And I think that's how she always operated. She always would remember she's there to help students succeed. She's there to transform lives, much of the way her life was transformed through education. And she's never lost track of that.
Dr. Simmons has received more than 40 honorary degrees and major national honors, including election to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the American Philosophical Society, the French Legion of Honor, and in 2024, she was the recipient of the National Humanities Medal, the U.S. government's highest award for achievements in the humanities, presented by President Biden.
Her legacy is ultimately going to be in the thousands and thousands of students who she impacted directly with her leadership.
I think what people will learn from Ruth's life story is no matter where you started, the sky's the limit. There's nothing you cannot do.
For her extraordinary leadership, her advocacy for equality and truth, and her lifelong commitment to opening doors for others, we honor Dr. Ruth J. Simmons as a history-making Texan.